Broaden the conversation. We're joined by Labour expert Michael Bagraim, who is with us. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. We've just listened to the Minister of Employment and Labour speaking and visiting various factories. And it's a move which we've seen not just in the Eastern Cape, but in various parts of the country where officials are out and about to really get a sense of what's happening on the ground. And of course, being inspired by reports of endemic exploitation in the sector. What does such an engagement highlight about workers' rights in South Africa?
Well, thank you. Yes, it does. And it's good to hear that there have been engagements with workers and employers. This is a breath of fresh air, and I applaud Minister Meth, the Minister of Employment and Labour, for this expedition into various industries. She did the restaurant industry last week. Now we're seeing it in the Eastern Cape, so it's good. The problem I've got is that most of the exploitation takes place in the small and informal businesses, and you never hear of them being investigated at all. Compliance is absolutely nil in various industries, and especially the small industry. And the inspectors tend to concentrate on formal business, big business. And there we're not seeing, they're looking for nitty-gritty little things, and we're not seeing the real problems that we have in this country. For instance, in the domestic workers sector, people working in spaza shops, that sort of thing. The other problem we've got, of course, is that there are only 2,000 inspectors, and we've probably got about 1 million businesses in the country. And on top of it, those inspectors aren't properly capacitated. I speak to inspectors every day from the Department of Employment and Labour. Most of them don't have vehicles, they don't have laptops, some of them don't get proper training, and some can't even get to work and do their admin work. People are overworked, underpaid, and unfortunately the inspectorate needs to be properly capacitated. I'm hoping that the department looks to proper funding for its inspectors, because it's all very well having fancy labour laws in the country, but if you've got no one to enforce it, then you've got a real problem. And the minister said so. She said she hopes to see it more often, not only where she goes. So that what happens is that the department find out where the minister's going to visit. They then have a blitz. That makes news, and everyone thinks that this is fine, things are going well in the country. Well, that's not the case. And the minister obviously has now got an inkling of that. That the people have these big blitzes, make a big splash, and somehow it's not sustainable. Then they don't come back to that area for the next 6 months or next year. And that's been my problem. I've been complaining about the under-resourced inspectorate now for 10 years. We need to actually have proper inspectors who are able to actually keep ongoing problems. The other problem, of course, is the trade union movement. They need to come forward and explain that, if their workers if their members are being exploited, they must come forward and be the deep throat for workers that are being exploited.
But you talk about your concerns around these blitzes done in informal big business, and that perhaps the focus should also now move to the smaller businesses. But doesn't that speak to some of the red tape when it comes to proper compliance with the smaller businesses that don't have a food safety certificate, that don't have the higher level certification that allows them to trade on that scale?
Well, correct. So when you have a business who are trying to actually comply with all the red tape, they get condemned and the others never do. What we should do is we should have a look at the red tape and get rid of a lot of that red tape. I understand you can't get rid of the red tape with regard to safety and compliance and health. That I understand. But a lot of the business, if you only open up an exercise to have a look at the red tape for a restaurant, for a small restaurant, they've got a book of 300 pages and no one actually complies with that at all. And so it's very easy to go into a factory that have special human resource officers, they have safety officers, and then say, oh, we found that you haven't got proper ventilation. That's very easy, and inspectors then get welcome. But to actually have a look at every little restaurant. I know it's an impossible task for the 2,000 inspectors we have.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we need to actually either dumb down our red tape, which I've been calling for a long time, and deregulate small business. We've got to create jobs. All of this is all very nice and nice to have, but it's not. It's actually adding a handbrake to job creation in South Africa today.
You made mention of the restaurant industry being under the spotlight last week. And we know that in that space, if you look at what happened at Mandela Mall, for instance, where it was found that two restaurants, it was found that employees were owed a combined 1.3 million rand in unpaid wages because there was no compliance to the national minimum wage of 27 rand 58 cents per hour. What kind of legal grounds do those employees have against the employer?
Well, of course, I do have legal grounds. I can immediately turn to the bargaining council. They all belong to the bargaining council. And this tells you another story altogether, because we have a bargaining council. And why were the employees so quiet? Why were the unions silent? What is really behind all of this? And I think it's unemployment. I think people are so desperate to have jobs that they're not going to comply, and they're not going to squeal at all. Now that one of the employees spoke up, and now there's been investigation into and these are fancy restaurants. Again, it's the easy ones to look at. I mean, how many restaurants are in that area? Another 500? And I can promise you that if you look at them, and the inspectors won't go there because it becomes more and more difficult to have a look at the smaller ones. The formal, big, fancy restaurants are easy to investigate and easy to climb in. But there is a bargaining council, and that bargaining council is specifically there to enforce the law. And again, I say that we need to have a re-look at the law and say, is this sustainable? Why is it so endemic when you actually just tap at the surface and you find so many problems? What is going on? And the very people that are supposed to be recipients of the payment never came forward. One person did in this particular case, and it was in a very fancy restaurant. And then they did that compliance with the inspectors targeting that area. It's something that tells you a real story, that what is going on in the rest of the underbelly of the restaurants in South Africa today. And it's the same with the employment of foreign nationals. They're in every single industry, and somehow we picked on restaurants, and it was an easy target, quite frankly. Again, a very easy target to have a look at, and the inspectors were there in their droves, and again, because the minister went. But I have no problem with that, because if we've got a law, we've got to adhere to the law.
Yeah.
The problem I have is that we want to really create jobs in South Africa. We are at 42% unemployment, and even with the latest figures that came in yesterday, we've only created a handful of jobs. I think it was 40,000 extra jobs when things were supposed to be so good. In South Africa, things are improving, and we only have 40,000 extra jobs. But we've got 11 million people that are looking for jobs and can't find.
Yeah.
So it's something that is wrong. Correct. Something's wrong, and it can't be business as usual. And we shouldn't be spending most of our time worrying about a few formal businesses that need to be prosecuted, and hopefully they will be prosecuted. Hopefully we'll see consequences. We need consequence management. So that people are punished. People are given
very quickly,
fines.
what kind of consequences could we see?
Well, they're criminal consequences. And that's breaking the law. And I'm hoping that either people pay massive fines, the workers get their money back, they get interest on the monies, and that they follow up. It can't just be this week, everyone gets excited, everyone gets some money, and then they go back to their old ways. We need follow-ups as well.
Okay, thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation. Labour expert Michael Bagraim speaking there to the Labour and Employment Department blitzes that we've seen taking place across the country.